The heat is the first thing. Before the fear, before the shame, before the terrible realization of where she is, there is just the heat. It is not the gentle, warming sun of a Cornish July, the kind that breaks through the mist to ripen the blackberries in the hedgerows. This is a violent, blinding, white-hot oppression. It bears down on the city of Algiers with physical weight, pressing the breath out of your lungs. It reflects off the whitewashed walls of the slave market, the Badistan. Dazzling eyes are used to graze skies and soft, rain-blurred horizons. Here, there are no shadows to hide in. Everything is exposed. Every flaw, every tremble, every drop of sweat is illuminated for the buyers to see. The air smells of alien spices, sharp cumin, heavy musk, roasting meat. But underneath that, thick and cloying, is a universal, sour stench of fear. It rises from the hundreds of bodies crowded into the square, a silent, trembling mass of humanity huddled together like cattle in a pen. Agnes Pender stands on a raised wooden block. She is 19 years old. 6 weeks ago, she was wearing heavy woolens, braced against the Atlantic wind, her fingers red from the cold water of the wash basin. Now, she has been stripped to her shift. The fabric is thin, almost translucent in the punishing sun. Her dignity has been peeled away, layer by layer, mile by nautical mile, until she is nothing but flesh and bone, a commodity, an item in a ledger. She tries to cover herself, crossing her arms over her chest, but her hands are pulled away by a guard. They are rough hands, her hands. They are callous for mending fishing nets and salting pilchards. They are the hands of a worker, a daughter of the coast, strong and capable. But here, they tremble uncontrollably. A man steps forward. He is dressed in fine silk, a sharp contrast to her rags. He does not look at her face. He looks at her teeth. He squeezes the muscle of her shoulder, testing its density. He lifts her chin with a clinical, bored expression, turning her head side to side to check for lice or sores. These are not the rough touches of a tavern brawl. They are the calculating touches of a merchant inspecting livestock. A scribe stands nearby, dipping a quill into an ink pot, scratching down numbers that represent her life. Agnes closes her eyes. Beyond the noise of the crowd, the guttural shouts of the auctioneer, the weeping of children, the clink of silver coins changing hands, she hears a sound that should be comforting. It is the sound of water. The tide is lapping against the harbor walls just a few hundred yards away. But this water sounds different. It is sluggish, warm, and indifferent. It lacks the violent crash of the Atlantic. It is the Mediterranean. It is the same element that surrounds her home in Mousehole, the same salt water that flows into the English Channel. Yet here, it feels like a prison wall. She opens her eyes and looks out over the sea of turbans, robes, and strange faces. She searches the crowd for a familiar sight. A red coat, a flag of St. George, a savior. But the horizon is empty. As the gavel falls, a sharp, final crack that echoes off the stone walls. The realization settles in her chest, heavier than the iron chains around her ankles. England is not coming. The year is 1625. This nightmare, this systematic dismantling of human lives, began in a place that felt as far removed from the scorching heat of North Africa as the moon is from the earth. We are often told that history is written by the victors, but sometimes history is simply deleted by the shameful. The abduction of 400 women and children from the coast of Cornwall is a story that does not fit the narrative of the British Empire. It is a story of weakness, of betrayal, and of a government that looked at its own people and decided they weren't worth the cost of rescue. If you want to hear the stories they tried to erase, the events that were buried because they were too painful or too embarrassing to remember, consider subscribing. We are digging up the graves the history books forgot. To understand the horror of that auction block, we must first understand the silence of the gray coast they left behind. Mousehole, Cornwall, 1625. It is a village clinging to the granite rocks at the very edge of the map. To the people who live here, this is not just a town. It is the end of the world. Beyond the harbor wall lies the vast, unknown Atlantic, a gray expanse that swallows ships and men without apology. Life here is rhythmic. It is a hypnosis of repetition, dictated by the seasons and the tides. It is a hard life, certainly, but a predictable one. Men mend nets with fingers numbed by the cold. Women cure fish in salt cellars, their breath misting in the dawn air. The smell of the village is the smell of brine, wood smoke, and wet wool. There is a specific kind of quiet here, an insular, safe silence where everyone knows everyone else's name, their history, and their sins. You are born in a stone cottage. You work the sea, and you are buried in the churchyard on the hill. The people of Mousehole believe their poverty is their shield. They look at their modest homes and empty pockets and think, who would bother? They are too small, too poor, too insignificant to attract the attention of the world's wolves. Empires rise and fall, wars rage in Europe, but Mousehole remains, limpet on a rock untouched. They trust in two things, God and the King. King Charles I sits on the throne in London. To the Cornish fishermen, he is a distant figure of supreme power, a god on earth. They believe his navy patrols these waters. A wooden wall, a protection that keeps the French and Spanish at bay. They pay their taxes, they pray in his church, and in return they expect safety. But they do not know the truth. They do not know that the wooden wall is rotting. In 1625, the Royal Navy is a phantom. Corruption has eaten the heart out of the fleet. Ships sit in the dockyards of Chatham and Portsmouth, their hulls leaking, their rigging stripped and sold by corrupt officials. The sailors who should be manning them are starving, unpaid for months, wandering the streets, begging for bread. The king is embroiled in political squabbles with Parliament, obsessed with his own divine right, blind to the rot at the foundations of his kingdom. The gate to England is not just unlocked. It has been taken off its hinges. And so, the sound of the tide crashing against the Cornish rocks is the sound of safety to these villagers. It is the heartbeat of their world. It brings the pilchards. It brings the fathers and husbands home for supper. It is the white noise that lulls the children to sleep in their lofts. But out in the deep water, beyond the sight of the coastal watchtowers, the wind is catching sails that do not belong to English merchants. The ocean has changed. It is no longer a barrier protecting them from the world. It has become a highway for a predator that views this coastline not as a sovereign nation, but as a hunting ground. 715, Chapter 2, The Myth of the Jolly Roger. We need to pause here and dismantle a myth. When we say pirates, your mind likely drifts to Hollywood. You see Jack Sparrow. You see rum-soaked outlaws, chaotic brawls, buried treasure, and a life of anarchic freedom. You imagine a disorganized rabble of criminals. Erase that image. The ships approaching Cornwall in the twilight of 1625 are not filled with disorderly rogues. They are the vanguard of a military-industrial complex. The Barbary states of North Africa, Algiers, Tunis, Sale, Tripoli, are not shanty towns. They are thriving, sophisticated metropolises, in many ways more advanced than the squalid, plague-ridden streets of London. They have paved streets, hospitals, public baths, and a level of hygiene that would baffle the average Englishman of the 17th century. But their economy is built on a single, terrifying pillar: human beings. This is not simple banditry. It is state-sponsored commerce. It is a machine designed to extract value from flesh. Begging for bread, the king is embroiled in political squabbles with Parliament, obsessed with his own divine right, blind to the rot at the foundations of his kingdom. The gate to England is not just unlocked. It has been taken off its hinges. And so, the sound of the tide crashing against the Cornish rocks is the sound of safety to these villagers. It is the heartbeat of their world. It brings the pilchards. It brings the fathers and husbands home for supper. It is the white noise that lulls the children to sleep in their lofts. But out in the deep water, beyond the sight of the coastal watchtowers, the wind is catching sails that do not belong to English merchants. The ocean has changed. It is no longer a barrier protecting them from the world. It has become a highway for a predator that views this coastline not as a sovereign nation, but as a hunting ground. 715, Chapter 2, The Myth of the Jolly Roger. We need to pause here and dismantle a myth. When we say pirates, your mind likely drifts to Hollywood. You see Jack Sparrow. You see rum-soaked outlaws, chaotic brawls, buried treasure, and a life of anarchic freedom. You imagine a disorganized rabble of criminals. Erase that image. The ships approaching Cornwall in the twilight of 1625 are not filled with disorderly rogues. They are the vanguard of a military-industrial complex. The Barbary states of North Africa, Algiers, Tunis, Sale, Tripoli, are not shanty towns. They are thriving, sophisticated metropolises, in many ways more advanced than the squalid, plague-ridden streets of London. They have paved streets, hospitals, public baths, and a level of hygiene that would baffle the average Englishman of the 17th century. But their economy is built on a single, terrifying pillar: human beings. This is not simple banditry. It is state-sponsored commerce. It is a machine designed to extract value from flesh. The violence, when it arrives, does not happen at high noon. It does not happen with a warning shot across the bow. It comes in the deepest part of the night, at that hour when the sleep of the labor is heaviest, when the dreams are deepest. The first sign is not visual. It is a change in the soundscape. The rhythmic, comforting crash of the tide, that heartbeat of the village, is suddenly drowned out. It is replaced by the splintering of ancient wood and the alien, thunderous roar of muskets. Chaos erupts in the dark. Villagers stumble out of their beds, blind in the gloom, their feet finding cold stone. The air, usually crisp and salty, is suddenly choking with the acrid smell of burning thatch. The pirates have set fires to the roofs. It is a tactical maneuver, executed with military precision. They are not burning the village to destroy it. They are burning it to herd the population like sheep. Fire is the shepherd. The corsairs move through the narrow, winding streets with terrifying efficiency. They block the alleyways, forcing the terrified families toward the only open space large enough to hold them. The church, the very place where they sought salvation, becomes a holding pen. The claustrophobia of the moment is absolute. In the flickering orange light of their burning homes, neighbors look at each other and see the reflection of their own terror. The noise is deafening. The screaming of women, the cry of infants, the shouting of orders in a language that sounds like grinding stones. We see the separation. This is where the true horror lies. It is not just a capture. It is the sorting. Men who resist, fathers trying to defend their thresholds with fishing knives, are clubbed down. They are not killed if it can be helped. A dead man cannot pull an oar. But those who are too old or too frail are discarded, left bleeding in the cobbled streets. We focus on Elizabeth Trenwith. She is pulled from her doorway, her children screaming at her skirts. The violence, when it arrives, does not happen at high noon. It does not happen with a warning shot across the bow. It comes in the deepest part of the night, at that hour when the sleep of the labor is heaviest, when the dreams are deepest. The first sign is not visual. It is a change in the soundscape. The rhythmic, comforting crash of the tide, that heartbeat of the village, is suddenly drowned out. It is replaced by the splintering of ancient wood and the alien, thunderous roar of muskets. Chaos erupts in the dark. Villagers stumble out of their beds, blind in the gloom, their feet finding cold stone. The air, usually crisp and salty, is suddenly choking with the acrid smell of burning thatch. The pirates have set fires to the roofs. It is a tactical maneuver, executed with military precision. They are not burning the village to destroy it. They are burning it to herd the population like sheep. Fire is the shepherd. The corsairs move through the narrow, winding streets with terrifying efficiency. They block the alleyways, forcing the terrified families toward the only open space large enough to hold them. The church, the very place where they sought salvation, becomes a holding pen. The claustrophobia of the moment is absolute. In the flickering orange light of their burning homes, neighbors look at each other and see the reflection of their own terror. The noise is deafening. The screaming of women, the cry of infants, the shouting of orders in a language that sounds like grinding stones. We see the separation. This is where the true horror lies. It is not just a capture. It is the sorting. Men who resist, fathers trying to defend their thresholds with fishing knives, are clubbed down. They are not killed if it can be helped. A dead man cannot pull an oar. But those who are too old or too frail are discarded, left bleeding in the cobbled streets. We focus on Elizabeth Trenwith. She is pulled from her doorway, her children screaming at her skirts. Her husband, Thomas, lunges forward. He is a strong man, a man who fights the sea for a living, but he is no match for a trained soldier with a scimitar. He is struck down, a blow to the head that leaves him ringing and helpless. He lies in the mud, unable to rise, watching through dimming eyes as his wife is hauled away by her hair. The violence is intimate. It is fast. It is shattering. The landmarks of their lives, the pub where they laughed, the pier where they worked, the altar where they prayed, are transformed into traps. The sacred geography of their home is violated, and then, as quickly as the storm broke, it recedes. By dawn, the village of Mousehole is a smoking ruin. The silence returns, but it is heavy, unnatural, and wrong. It is the silence of a graveyard. The birds do not sing. The only sound is the water, broken by the rhythm of receding oars, carrying 400 souls away from the only world they have ever known. The journey that follows is a descent into the underworld. Historians often speak of Middle Passage when discussing the Atlantic slave trade, detailing the horrors of the ships bound for the Americas. But for the women of Mousehole, the horror is identical. Only the direction is different. They are north of the equator, but they are in hell. 400 women and children are packed into the hold of the Corsair ship. This is a space meant for cargo bales, for spices, for timber. It is not meant for people. They are crammed in so tightly that there is no room to lie down, no room to turn. The hatch is battened down, plunging them into total darkness. The sensory details of this confinement are nauseating. Within hours, the heat begins to build. The combined body warmth of hundreds of terrified people turns a hold into an oven. The air grows heavy with carbon dioxide, sweat, and the stench of seasickness. There is no sanitation. Buckets are passed around, but they are insufficient. The floor becomes slick with filth. We rely on the historical account of Mary Walcott, a young woman who survived the rite of this darkness. She describes the sheer psychological terror of the unknown. They do not know where they are going. They do not know if they are to be killed or eaten. They are suspended in a limbo between two worlds, stripped of their agency, their privacy, and their humanity. The sound of the tide, once their lullaby, is now a torment. It rushes past a thin wooden hull. Whoosh, 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 a constant, mocking reminder of the distance growing between them and home. Every wave takes them further from redemption. Every hour widens a gap. Inside the hold, the social structures of the village dissolve. There is no status here. The baker's wife is pressed against a beggar. The matriarch is as helpless as the child. They are just bodies in the dark, fighting for oxygen. Sickness spreads like wildfire in the stagnant air. We see the first deaths. They do not die from violence. They die from shock. They die from dehydration. They die from despair. A child stops crying and goes cold in his mother's arms. An elder, unable to withstand the heat, simply slips away in the night. The living must coexist with the dead until the captors decide to open a hatch and throw the bodies overboard. In the darkness, the women whisper prayers in English. It starts as a collective, trembling murmur, "Our Father, who art in heaven," but as the days turn into weeks and the air grows hotter and closer, the prayers grow quieter. The realization begins to take root. Heaven is far away. God did not stop the ships, and they are sailing toward a different kingdom entirely. When the hatch is finally thrown open, the light is blinding. They are dragged up from the belly of the ship, squinting and gasping, into the dazzling brilliance of Algiers. The culture shock is absolute. It is an assault on the senses, so profound it feels like a hallucination. The architecture is alien, white domes and sharp minarets piercing a sky that is too blue, too bright. The language is a sharp, guttural flow they cannot comprehend. The heat is a physical blow, a dry furnace blast that dries the sweat on their skin instantly. This is a division of souls. They are herded from the docks to the markets, and here, the brutal mathematics of the Barbary machine is fully revealed. They are not just sold, they are categorized. They are sorted like fish on the quay. The older women, those considered past their prime, are pushed to one side. Their fate is domestic labor. They will scrub floors, wash clothes, and bake bread until they drop. They will be beasts of burden. The men, those who survive the journey, are chained for the galleys. This is a death sentence. They will be chained to a bench, rowing until their hearts burst or their backs break. But the most heart-wrenching scenes play out with the children. The boys are separated from their mothers with practiced efficiency. They are valuable commodities. They are destined for the Janissary Corps or the Sultan's service. They will be circumcised, converted to Islam, and raised as soldiers. Agnes watches as a woman she has known her whole life screams, reaching for her 10-year-old son as he is dragged away by a soldier. The boy looks back, his face a mask of terror, tears cutting tracks through the grime on his cheeks. That is the last time they will ever see each other. He will grow up to fight for a foreign flag. He will be given a new name. He will forget the English words for mother and home. The unity of the 400 is broken. They are scattered across the city, like seeds in a desert wind. Agnes looks in the mirror and does not recognize the woman staring back. The Cornish girl is gone. Meanwhile, back in England, the second betrayal is taking place. This is a ledger's shame. Thomas Trenwith, the fisherman who was left bleeding in the street, survives. He, along with other husbands and fathers, begins a desperate campaign. They walk to London, a journey of hundreds of miles. They petition the government. They beg for ships, for money, for a rescue mission. Our wives are in slavery, they cry. Our children are lost. But in the halls of Parliament, the tragedy of Mousehole is viewed through a lens of cold, aristocratic calculus. The king and his ministers debate the cost of ransoms. The price for a single English captive is high. The price for 400 is astronomical. The state is broke. The navy is weak. To pay the ransom would be to admit weakness to the world, to encourage more raids. So they decide essentially that the price is too high. The women of Cornwall are written off as bad debt. They are economically unrecoverable losses. We see the letters arriving years later, smuggled out by sympathetic merchants, stained with tears and seawater. They are harrowing pleas for rescue. For the love of God, redeem us, they write. We are in misery. We are forgetting our prayers. The king reads them, or perhaps he doesn't. He is paralyzed by political infighting and his own ego. The state actively suppresses the news. They do not want the country to know that the king cannot protect his own shores. The erasure begins here. The families in Cornwall eventually stop waiting at the docks. The church holds memorial services for the living, burying empty coffins in the wet earth to give the grieving somewhere to weep. The state's inaction is a violence as sharp as the pirates' swords, a silent decree that these lives were not worth the gold it would take to save them. Years turn into decades. The sharp edges of trauma are smoothed down by the relentless passage of time. This is the echo in the blood. Agnes Pender lives in captivity for 22 years. She never sees Cornwall again. She never hears the Atlantic tide again. She dies in North Africa, her body wrapped in foreign cloth, buried in foreign soil. But the story does not simply end with death. It transforms. We must face the tragic reality that for the children taken that night, North Africa became home. The boy dragged from his mother's arms grew up. He likely married. He likely had children of his own. He forgot the smell of Cornish rain. He forgot the taste of salted pilchards. The English language withered in his mind, replaced by the cadence of Algiers. He became a man of the Maghreb. Modern science offers a haunting postscript to this erasure. DNA studies in North Africa today reveal distinct European maternal lineages that cluster in these old Corsair ports. The women were not just killed, they were absorbed. They became ancestors to a population that does not know their names. Their bloodline survived, but their history was amputated. Imagine an old woman in a courtyard in Algiers, decades after the raid. She was once a girl from Mousehole. She is humming a tune to her grandchild. It is a fragment of a Cornish folk song, a melody about the sea and the tin mines. She can no longer translate the words. The meaning is gone, lost to the years, but the melody remains, a ghost of a sound, echoing in a land that has swallowed her whole. We return, finally, to the source. Walk through Mousehole today. It is a picturesque tourist town. People eat ice cream on the harbor wall. Artists paint the charming stone cottages. The water sparkles in the sun. It is beautiful, but look for the monument. Look for the statue of the 400 women. There is nothing. The history books mention the Spanish Armada. They mention the Blitz. But this trauma, this mass abduction, has been surgically removed from the national narrative. It didn't fit the story of British naval supremacy. It was an embarrassment, a failure, and so it was let go. The village has healed, in the way a body heals over a shrapnel wound. The skin is smooth, but the scar tissue is deep and hard underneath. The families of Mousehole died out or moved on. Their lineage is cut short or diverted. We end with shot of the sea at dusk. The light is fading, turning the water a bruised purple. The water looks exactly the same as it did in 1625. It is indifferent to human suffering. The central motif returns one last time, the rhythmic, relentless sound of the tide. Whoosh, whoosh. It washes over the rocks, cleansing the crime scene, eroding the memory, leaving no trace of the women who once looked at the same horizon, dreaming of a rescue that never came. They are gone, and the silence they left behind is the loudest thing on this coast. If you want more stories the world tried to bury, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments what other history has been erased in your country. I'll see you in the dark.